Hey everyone, this is Kara, and today I'm partnering with Paradox Interactive to bring you an in-depth look at the All Under Heaven expansion for Crusader Kings III. The focus of this video is the Dynastic Cycle. First we'll go over an overview, then I'll teach you about the 5 different Dynastic Cycle eras. Afterwards we'll learn about political movements, and we'll wrap up with catalysts. So let's start with that Dynastic Cycle overview. The Dynastic Cycle, at its core, is the way that All Under Heaven is representing various periods of Chinese history. Usually the Empire of China was stable and prosperous, but in between those stable periods, there are lots of other periods of decline and disunity, and sometimes even warring states and foreign invasions. And then a new dynasty would eventually emerge, piece everything back together again, and claim the Mandate of Heaven. So the Dynastic Cycle is representing those broader forces of history. Each cycle era you find yourself in changes basically every single gameplay mechanic while you're playing in the China region. Basically, the Dynastic Cycle is a really big deal, and it's worth paying attention to. So if you want to find it in your UI, just head to the blue situation button at the right side of the screen, and then you can click on the Dynastic Cycle button to see this pretty extensive overview screen. Up front, it shows you which area you're in, and if you click this circle in the top right, it'll spin. Woo! Alright, now let's find out more about the 5 eras. The Dynastic Cycle has 5 different possible eras it can rotate between. First of all, there's 2 types of stable eras, which, as the name suggests, are characterized by things being pretty chill, the Emperor having high legitimacy, and getting certain bonuses depending on which stable era you're in. The 2 types of stable eras are the Advancement era and the Expansion era. The Advancement eras weren't internally focused, being all about art and poetry, building and development, and increasing the prosperity of your people at large, while focusing less on your army. It's basically playing tall, the era, and the Expansion era is sort of the exact opposite. It's outward focused, meaning you get extra men-at-arms, you get expansion focused casus belli, you can make new tributaries, and as you'd expect, building and development also take a backseat. So both of the stable eras are pretty good eras to be in, but there's also a pretty big catch. You might think that you could just switch from one to the other and get the benefits of both, but that's not allowed. In order to switch from one stable era to the other, say from advancement to expansion, you first have to go through an unstable era in order to shake things up enough to then go for the type of stable era you want to go for afterwards, which is what makes it a cycle. So what are those unstable type eras? The first unstable type era is the tension era. This is when things are on a downward trajectory, corruption is rising, rebellions spring up way more commonly, bad events happen a lot more frequently. When you're in the tension era, you're sort of on the precipice between the empire spiraling into total collapse, or just barely being able to bring it back to a stable era. The second unstable era type is the Conquest era. This is more of a special era type that only occurs when a foreign, quote-unquote, dynasty claims the Mandate of Heaven. And it's specifically triggered when a character who claims the Mandate of Heaven is of a culture that doesn't have Chinese cultural heritage and doesn't have the celestial government type at the time of claiming the Mandate of Heaven. And the final era is the Division era. This is the era when the Empire of China fully collapses, and all the direct vassals of the Emperor become fully independent realms. Plus, everyone has access to the reunified China casus belli, and whoever comes out on top of the scrap by claiming at least 75% of the de jure hegemony of China title gets to take a decision to become the new ruling dynasty of China. Political movements. The other tab in the Dynastic Cycle situation screen is the political movements overview. You can join one of 4 major political movements, but you really do want to join a political movement because you do get lots of bonuses and advantages for being in a faction. You also get friends. The 4 major political movements are Pro-Dynasty, which is the major stability faction. The Advancement movement always wants to be in the Advancement stable era. The Expansion movement always want to be in an expansion era. And finally, there's the Conservative movement, which is almost like the opposite of the pro-dynasty movement, since they care a lot more about entrenching the nobility over the usual merit-based system that China uses. And for each of these factions, characters directly get modifiers based on which era the Dynastic Cycle is in, and which movement they're a part of. In 1066, since we're in an advancement era, advancement movement members get pretty nice personal building cost reductions, while expansion movement members get nothing. It's important to note that you can switch between political movements. You can even be bribed to join different political movements. And the other big thing with political movements is that you can use them to influence the Dynastic Cycle if you aren't the Emperor yourself. Which brings us to catalysts, which are triggered occurrences with specific point values that push the cycle from one era to another. Some catalysts are immediate and powerful enough to trigger a new era on their own, like if the Emperor loses the Mandate of Heaven, or the entire ruling dynasty gets replaced. Those are huge catalysts that immediately change change the era, but most catalysts are really small, and they accumulate gradually over time. And with that, that's going to be it for this video covering the Dynastic Cycle mechanics in the All Under Heaven expansion. In the next video in this series, I'll be covering the civil and military career paths for the Celestial Government. Subscribe here to the official Crusader Kings III channel. Thanks again to Paradox Interactive. This is Kara. Thank you a bunch for watching. Take care and much love.